In the middle of the desert, there was no land left to build on. So Dubai didn't wait for land. It built its own. From an empty stretch of the Arabian Gulf, engineers created an island shaped like a palm tree, so massive it can be seen from space. No blueprint like it had ever been attempted. No coastline like it had ever existed. This is the story of how a small desert nation turned sand, rock, and raw ambition into the eighth wonder of the modern world, and almost lost it all in the process. In the late 1990s, Dubai had a problem most cities would dream of having: too much money and too little coastline. The city's economy was booming, oil revenue was funding rapid growth, and Dubai's rulers were already looking past oil toward tourism and global finance as the future. But there was a hard physical limit standing in the way. The natural shoreline stretched only about 66 kilometers. For a nation betting its future on beachfront resorts and luxury real estate, that was not nearly enough. You cannot sell an unlimited number of ocean view villas on a coastline that's short. Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the ruler of Dubai, didn't see this as a wall. He saw it as a design problem waiting for an engineer's answer. If the coastline was too short, Dubai would simply make it longer. Not by a little, by a lot. The idea that emerged was almost absurd on paper. Build an artificial island in the shape of a palm tree, extending kilometers into the sea, adding as much new beachfront as the entire existing coast of the country combined. It would need to be visible from orbit. It would need to survive in open water, exposed to waves, currents, and violent Gulf storms. And it would need to be built on a seabed that had never been designed to hold anything heavier than fish and coral. Most engineers who heard the pitch had the same reaction. It can't be done. Not at this scale, not in this location, not with existing technology. Dubai's answer was simple. Then we will invent the technology as we go. The design that Dubai settled on was elegant precisely because it solved so many problems at once. A palm tree shape gives you a trunk connecting to the mainland, a crown of curving fronds spreading outward, and a surrounding crescent that acts as a natural breakwater. That crescent wasn't just decorative. It was the island's shield, absorbing the force of open sea waves before they ever reached the fronds where villas and hotels would eventually sit. The frond design also solved the beachfront math. A circular island of the same footprint would offer only a fraction of the shoreline that a branching palm shape could deliver. Every curve of every frond became another strip of private beach that could be marketed and sold at a premium. The first of these islands was named Palm Jumeirah, closest to the existing city and meant as the proof of concept for everything that would follow. Its scale is difficult to grasp in numbers alone. It would eventually include 17 fronds, a 2-kilometer trunk lined with apartment towers, and a surrounding crescent nearly 11 kilometers long, anchored by a hotel at either end. But a shape on a drawing is one thing. Turning that shape into solid ground in the middle of the sea, with nothing to build on but water and seabed, is another problem entirely. And it's where the real engineering story begins. There was no concrete foundation poured for Palm Jumeirah, no steel frame driven into bedrock. The entire island had to be built from the seafloor up, using nothing but sand and rock, in open water, with no precedent of this scale to follow. The company handling this impossible task was Van Oord, a Dutch dredging firm with generations of experience reclaiming land from the sea, brought in specifically because European contractors had spent decades perfecting techniques for holding backwater in places like the Netherlands. Their tool of choice was a fleet of specialized ships called cutter suction dredgers. Their method was something engineers call rainbowing. Dredgers would suck up massive volumes of sand from the seafloor several kilometers offshore, then spray it through the air in a high-arching stream, letting it rain down and settle precisely into the outline of the island's design. Satellite GPS guided every ship, keeping the spray pattern accurate to within centimeters, because a shape this large had zero room for error at the edges. From above, it genuinely looked like a rainbow made of sand, arching over the sea 24 hours a day for years. But sand alone does not stay in place in open water. Waves would simply wash it away again before it ever hardened into land. So engineers built the crescent breakwater first, using nearly 7 million tons of rock, much of it quarried from the mountains of Dubai and Oman and transported by barge. Each rock had to be placed with GPS precision, checked by divers, and rechecked, because a breakwater with even small gaps would let the sea erode everything built behind it within a single storm season. Only once that outer wall existed could the fronds be filled in, layer by layer, using around 94 million cubic meters of sand. That is enough sand to fill hundreds of thousands of Olympic swimming pools, or to build a wall 1 meter thick stretching most of the way around the planet. And here is the detail most. Piling up sand and rock into the shape of a palm tree was only half the challenge. The far harder problem was invisible, buried underneath the surface. Freshly placed sand is loose. It has huge amounts of empty space between individual grains. Left alone, a structure built on top of it would sink unevenly over years, cracking roads, tilting villas, and slowly destroying the very infrastructure the island was built to support. To solve this, engineers used a process called vibrocompaction. Long steel probes were driven deep into the new land, then vibrated at high frequency, sometimes down to depths of 20 meters or more. This forced the sand grains to shake into tighter, denser arrangements, squeezing out the empty gaps and turning loose fill into stable, buildable ground. Workers repeated this process methodically across the entire island, frond by frond, section by section, checking density readings with cone penetration tests at every stage before any construction above ground was permitted to begin. Then came the question of the surrounding sea itself. Introducing a massive artificial landmass into open water changes how the tide moves, how currents flow, and how quickly the water inside and around the structure refreshes itself. Engineers used detailed computer fluid dynamics modeling to test how the palm shape would affect circulation, worried that a poorly designed island could trap stagnant, oxygen-poor water inside its fronds and slowly kill the marine life living around it. Adjustments were made to the spacing between fronds and the design of openings in the crescent, allowing seawater to flow through rather than stagnate, essentially giving the island gaps to breathe through. It was, in effect, an island engineered not just to stand still, but to circulate with the sea around it, monitored constantly during and after construction to make sure the underwater ecosystem wasn't quietly suffocating beneath a landmark being celebrated above the waterline. Behind every satellite photo of Palm Jumeirah is a workforce that rarely appears in the marketing. At the peak of construction, tens of thousands of laborers worked on the project, most of them migrant workers from South Asia, drawn to Dubai by wages that, while modest by global standards, were often significantly higher than what was available at home. Construction ran in relentless shifts, frequently through extreme summer heat that regularly exceeded 45 degrees Celsius, conditions that later prompted Dubai to introduce mandatory midday work bans during the hottest months of the year. Labor rights organizations raised repeated concerns during this period about long working hours, crowded labor accommodations, and passport confiscation practices used by some contractors, criticisms that became part of the broader global conversation about migrant labor conditions across the Gulf region. Dubai's government pointed to reforms introduced over the years, including wage protection systems and updated labor housing standards, as evidence of improving conditions. Whatever position one takes in that debate, one fact is not disputed. The palm shape visible from space was not raised by machines alone. It was raised, sandbag by sandbag, pipe by pipe, tile by tile, by human hands working in one of the harshest climates on Earth. Behind every satellite photo of Palm Jumeirah is a workforce that rarely appears in the marketing. At the peak of construction, tens of thousands of laborers worked on the project, most of them migrant workers from South Asia, drawn to Dubai by wages that, while modest by global standards, were often significantly higher than what was available at home. Construction ran in relentless shifts, frequently through extreme summer heat that regularly exceeded 45 degrees Celsius, conditions that later prompted Dubai to introduce mandatory midday work bans during the hottest months of the year. Labor rights organizations raised repeated concerns during this period about long working hours, crowded labor accommodations, and passport confiscation practices used by some contractors, criticisms that became part of the broader global conversation about migrant labor conditions across the Gulf region. Dubai's government pointed to reforms introduced over the years, including wage protection systems and updated labor housing standards, as evidence of improving conditions. Whatever position one takes in that debate, one fact is not disputed. The palm shape visible from space was not raised by machines alone. It was raised, sandbag by sandbag, pipe by pipe, tile by tile, by human hands working in one of the harshest climates on Earth. Once the land was compacted and stable, the second construction wave began, and it moved at a pace that stunned the global construction industry. Roads, water pipelines, electrical grids, telecommunications lines, and sewage systems all had to be built into land that had existed for less than 2 years. Villas rose along every frond, each with private beach access. Hotels and apartment towers anchored the trunk. A monorail was constructed to connect the mainland to the crescent, running the length of the trunk above the palm-shaped streets below, one of the first of its kind in the region. At the outermost tip of the crescent, the Atlantis Resort became the island's most recognizable symbol, a pink-towered structure rising from what had been open sea just a few years earlier, complete with its own water park and marine habitat built directly into the hotel's foundations. By the time Palm Jumeirah was substantially complete, Dubai had added roughly 78 kilometers of new coastline to a country that once had just 66 kilometers total. The math sounds impossible until you remember, every frond was its own private beach, multiplied 17 times over, plus the crescent on top. No engineering triumph of this size comes without a price, and Palm Jumeirah's price was steep in more than one currency. Financially, estimates for the full development, including infrastructure and the resorts built on top of it, ran into the billions of dollars, a bet that Dubai's leadership placed on tourism and global brand recognition years before either was guaranteed to pay off. Environmentally, scientists raised lasting concerns that persist today. Coral reefs near the original coastline were buried under new sand during construction. Changed currents altered natural erosion patterns along nearby beaches, in some cases requiring ongoing sand replenishment to keep neighboring shorelines intact. And the sheer volume of marine sand extracted from the seabed reshaped parts of the Gulf floor far beyond the footprint of the island itself, effects still being studied by marine biologists. Dubai's answer was that the economic transformation was worth the trade-offs, pointing to billions of dollars in tourism revenue, a global brand that no marketing campaign could have manufactured from nothing, and a permanent place on the list of places people plan their entire vacations around. Critics argued, and continue to argue, that no price tag fully captures what was permanently altered beneath the waves, or what conditions workers endured to build it, in exchange for a shape best appreciated from an airplane window or a satellite photo. Both things, it turns out, can be true at once. Today, Palm Jumeirah stands as one of the most recognizable man-made structures on Earth, a shape astronauts can pick out from the window of a space station without being told where to look. It proved something that, before 1999, most engineers would have called reckless. That land itself is negotiable. That a coastline is not a fixed boundary handed down by geography, but a canvas if you have the money, the sand, and the will to reshape the sea. Dubai didn't just build an island. It built an argument that the limits of geography are only the limits of imagination, backed by enough capital and enough sand dredged from the seafloor to prove the point. Whether that argument was worth its full cost, financial, environmental, and human, is still being written, wave by wave, along every frond of the palm.